So there I was, team, trapped in a fever dream, trying to figure out what the fuck I'm gonna build next. Desperate for answers, I turned to the candlelit poster of Jungroon in my room. Dude, ChatGPT fucking kills me. Suffice it to say, he told me I was dog shit and that I should uninstall, so it wasn't very fucking helpful. And then, in a serendipitous flash, the single most stupid idea I've ever come up with hit me. That's right, layman. 3 words. Profane Bloom, Boneshatter-Elementalist. 4 words. Whoa, 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 alright. Actually, 1 word. It is honestly a fucking piece of shit. This has to be one of the worst builds I think I've ever played. 8 brutal charges, by the way. Too bad 3 times 0 is still fucking 0. Our brutal charges have less uptime than Joe fucking Biden. All my mercenary does is just leave to fill up his vape at the beginning of every map. This shit is the build that awaits you in the 9th circle of hell. Holy fuck me, I cannot believe I made this fucking dog shit. This thing is such a fucking... But alright team, memes aside, let's talk about what actually went wrong with this build. To start, I think one of the major problems of this build was definitely the amount of travel nodes that were needed to kind of bring it all together. This is a lot of traveling, especially when we're not doing something crazy like armor stacking where we have a massive scaler to offset the amount of traveling that we're using. And on something like Crypt Bone Shatter, you know, not even having Impale is pretty rough, and your passive points go a long way. And I think just by having this much travel and having to go all the fuck over here is one of the major reasons why the build just did not feel very good really at all. I think it's why it doesn't POB too well either. For example, if we look at how many travel points I have, let's just say it's 30, okay? That is essentially 30 levels of not having a useful passive point allocation. Well, that's not necessarily true. Passive travel points can be useful, especially for tattoos and other things, and stats just in general can be useful. But in the particular case of this build, they're not really anything special, and I'm running Supreme Ostentation because I just thought, well, if I'm going to travel this much, might as well use it. Plus, I really like the Supreme Ostentation with the Impossible Escape tech going on here, so you can get a bunch of really good passives. This is actually a really good Supreme Ostentation for me. But yeah, you essentially just down level your character for the amount of passive points traveling that you spend. Again, that is not always the case. There are some builds where travel nodes and stat nodes are very good. This is just in the particular case of this one. Another major point of this build that was quite disappointing was the self-chill aspect of it. I would describe this as kind of like the adult version of Quicksand, but the opposite. Where, remember when you were a kid and you watched Princess Bride or you saw Quicksand in some fashion and it was absolutely terrifying, like, wow, that's a huge fucking problem, and then it just kind of wasn't. Self-chill is pretty much the same thing, except you think it's gonna be sick as fuck, and it honestly just isn't. In fact, it was so underwhelming and lackluster, I didn't even get my 4th ascendancy because I just could not be bothered to give a fuck. Ultimately, it really just wasn't as awe-inspiring as I thought it was going to be. There are a lot of problems with it, and there are some drawbacks to it. For example, you can't get element immunity the traditional way. You have to figure out how to do it in a roundabout sort of way. I have to use a fucking freeze flask, and this is mainly because I filled out my pantheons on my other character, and I can't turn off fucking Glace, so I can't use this. So that was like a huge issue. I don't know. There are definitely problems and drawbacks to self-chill, and I'm sure on other builds that have done it, it's insane and very good. But yeah, in this particular case, I just fuck self-chill, dude. Who cares? Something that really caught me off guard in this build is how easy it is to get crit cap using staff nodes with an eventuality rod and just a little bit of the melee critical strike nodes. You get so much crit. It's so easy to get crit capped on this shit that I ended up running a Mercenaries because I just had so much over crit. I think with the Mercenaries on, I'm still at like 70%, 78%, 80%, something like that. And maybe this is great, maybe it's not, whatever. But yeah, this is one of the major takeaways of this build, and it's something I will most certainly be using in my Boneshatter Berserker. Something else that was a bit surprising about this build was how good or not so good Elementalist is for something like this. Now, don't get me wrong, Elementalist is easily one of the best ascendancies in the game. It's absolutely disgusting. Golem's extremely good. Shaper Storm's busted as fuck, of course. I really thought it was gonna hard carry a lot of the build problems. But the reality of it is that even with how good golems are, and even with like 50% shock, it's just not really enough to offset all the things that you need to get Bone Shatter off the ground, at least from like a basic building blocks perspective. And also, I was gonna go like Golemancer, but like with what fucking points? Like I was getting a bunch of cluster jewels and shit. That all fell apart. So yeah, that was a huge problem actually. I was intending to do a bunch of golem stuff and get a bunch of clusters and megalomaniacs, and we just spent it all on fucking traveling. So teehee. Anyways, I think that's all I have for this one, mainly because this build again is just abandoned. I could not give a fuck less about this. It was definitely a learning experience. Definitely some things that went wrong. I do think you could maybe make this work if you had a lot of money, or if you were just simply better at building. This was most certainly not my best foot forward. I will drop a POV in the description. I won't do any of the settings or anything like that. I'm just going to give you the character as is, so you at least have something to work with. Maybe you'll find some inspiration on what not to do. Whatever you find, good luck, Godspeed. I will see you guys in the next one. Deuces.